thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we are talking about our unpopular Scooby-Doo opinions. Before we begin, I will have everyone introduce themselves, and Wendy will start with you.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy Bridge. I'm a commission artist, and I've been collecting Scooby for over 30 years.
Joel?
Hey there, I'm Joel from the YouTube channel Planet Scooby.
So we have our own unpopular Scooby-Doo opinions, and I also looked some up online. So we will be discussing unpopular Scooby opinions. This should be fun. Wendy, what's your first unpopular Scooby opinion?
Well, you know what? Let's just start strong. Let's just start strong for Nikki. It was not the first on my list, but we're going to make it first. My unpopular opinion is that Scrappy-Doo is the most loyal and reliable member of the gang out of everyone. And that while his size never changed, Scrappy-Doo absolutely matured as a character, just like a real life puppy turns into a full-grown adult dog. He did that on the show. His attitude and his demeanor and his personality very much matured. Just because he stayed pint size, again, that's just because his dad was a Chihuahua. But Scrappy, number one for loyalty, number one for being reliable. To be honest, I may do fan art of this sometime. Scrappy should be the next Doctor Who. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Scrappy for Doctor Who. I would trust Scrappy to save the world in a crisis. Because he is going to be like, get out of my way. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Zap, zap, zap. The world is saved. All thanks to Scrappy. I will be Scrappy's companion in the TARDIS. Has to be that way. But yes, most loyal, most reliable right here.
All right, so I do have Scrappy as my number one unpopular opinion. But I have the flip side of that Scrappy is obnoxious and annoying, and he is obnoxious and annoying. He's a bully. The only thing I could really tolerate him in was Boo Brothers because he was necessary in that movie. He was the one doing everything in that movie. But yeah, I definitely think that either way you go, it could potentially be an unpopular opinion, whether you like him or you hate him. So
Agreed.
Joel, what are your thoughts on Scrappy being liked or hated?
It's a season by season case for me. Like, I didn't mind him in his first season, and I didn't mind him in 13 Ghosts. And I didn't really have a problem with him in the shorts. I just don't like the comedy shorts. They're just not my thing. And I guess he was fine with the shorts with Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy. Those were good. I like those. Yeah, you're supposed to have you're supposed to pick a side with Scrappy, and I'm like Switzerland with Scrappy. I'm just like, it's not that bad. Some days and other days I'm like, I just don't like these shorts with him. Although I was swayed a little. I've Wendy always wrote me long explanations about why she liked the shorts, certain episodes, and she kind of won me over, but I wouldn't watch them again and enjoy them. So
That's fair.
But I could see the point of view.
It's very rare to hear someone say that they're kind of in the middle, like they can take him or leave him. Because most people either hate him or love him. And it's not too often that there is an in-between. Where do you think at this point, just in general, it lies? More with people liking him or hating him?
I don't know. I would be tempted. I'm tempted to say based on just what I have experienced myself and what I've seen going on, I would venture to say that it probably is a little more for the pro, but I would not be surprised if it was a very close, like a 50-50 split. Because I feel like there is like a certain demographic of people that is, it's not necessarily age based though, because you don't have to base what series you like or don't like on your age. I thought that that was a thing for a while, but it's really not. There are plenty of like older generational people that prefer a lot of modern Scooby. Whereas like I don't get that, but I see it. So I could definitely see like a fairly even split, but to be honest, I really think that it was overblown even from the start. I think Scrappy is almost like our Scooby snack talk, where it was like Scooby snacks. They're in every single episode. Scooby never does anything without one. And then you actually start watching it, looking for that, and you're like, wow, there is so much less here than I thought there was. The idea that there was all this like mountain of Scrappy hate from day one in like 1979 forward, I don't think that that's accurate. I think that that is a very revisionist, at a time where the hate was really strong. I think everyone projected that backwards to where it's like, no, there was a ton of it then. And everyone that we've talked to that actually had anything to do with the franchise was like, there wasn't. That's not the way it was. So I think it's a perception issue. And I'm also curious, do you think that, I understand that a lot of people feel specifically the way that Nikki does about Scrappy's personality, but do you think that there's at least some kind of group of people where they don't like him simply because they don't like those shorts with just the 3 characters? So they're blaming Scrappy as a character as opposed to blaming the format of that series, like 7 minutes, only 3 characters, ridiculous, doesn't even need a mystery. Because I wonder if that's maybe also part of what is driving a lot of the dislike for him, is actually a dislike of the format of that series.
Joel, first, what are your thoughts on if you think Scrappy is more liked or more hated at this point?
I think I agree with Wendy. I think, to use a phrase, the squeaky wheel gets the grease is more applies to Scrappy lovers right now. I think Scrappy haters have just kind of moved on. They don't really talk about Scrappy. They just, I don't know. I don't see a lot of hate for him out there other than from Nikki. But yeah, I think it's probably in the middle somewhere.
And Wendy's question, do you think that he was disliked because of those shorts or just as a character in general?
My experience, it was because of the shorts. Like everyone just stopped watching Scooby then. They thought it was a kiddie show. Because I lived through it and I was at the right age. And I go to school and I'd be like, hey, you watch Scooby-Doo? And they're like, no, we don't. It's not the same. It's for kids now. Even though we were kids, like under the age of 10. And no one really complained about Scrappy, really. It was just back then you just moved on to a different cartoon that was maybe a little more grown up, like G.I. Joe or Transformers or something. You just kind of stepped up in what you watched. Like at a certain point, Smurfs became a kiddie show, even though, granted, they didn't introduce Smurfette, and the boys didn't really like Smurfette, so they stopped watching the Smurfs. But no one really complained about it. They just kind of, you just kind of graduated to the next one. It was airing live, back then. And then, yeah, there was when I hit university, like the internet came out, and there was jokes about hating Scrappy, and I was like, ah, ha, ha, yeah, I get it. And then the movie, it kind of maybe kept that joke going over and over to where people now hate James Gunn because he created the anti-Scrappy movement.
Did he create it though? Because Cartoon Network had that bumper where everyone was just being mean to Scrappy.
Yeah, he probably lifted it from that or just kind of helped co-create it. I think he kind of extended it maybe because no one would remember those bumpers. But everyone, you get your kid to copy the Scooby-Doo movie on DVD. You're not going to give him a DVD of Cartoon Network or anything, right? So the DVD, I guess, introduced it to new generations or new audience. That's how I kind of feel about it. Because I hear that reference. I saw the movie, I remembered the joke, and then I forgot about it because it was an old, stale kind of maybe joke to me at that point. So yeah, maybe he didn't create it, but for people watching that for the first time, they were like, "What's a Scrappy?" And then they go back and I don't know. I'm babbling at this point, but
I think that the return of the 13th ghost was what started to shift into people liking Scrappy more than hating him. Because, I mean, even for me not liking him, he should have been in that movie. They shouldn't have made it without him. He was part of 13 Ghosts. How do you just take a whole character out? It made no sense. So I think that there's more people now that like him than that dislike him just because they've continued to do him wrong. And I think that people are kind of getting tired of the Scrappy hate. And then you have things like Be Cool and Velma that kind of pushed people into, oh, well, these are worse. So, we really like Scrappy. And as far as the shorts, I don't know. I've always disliked Scrappy. So for me, it wasn't just the shorts, it was just him in general.
Did you did you watch it back when it was like first coming on and stuff, or did you only discover it like later on when you were older?
I watched Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive when Scooby was first aired, but I would watch the reruns on Saturday morning cartoons. So that was my experience with it.
Yeah. See, I feel like part of why I really like him is that I saw very little of Where Are You when I was a kid. I definitely saw some of it, but primarily what I remember are the Scrappy shorts and a few of like the longer episodes from the first season. But it was so mixed in with the Scooby-Doo show and then obviously a little bit of Where Are You that you would think it would be more obvious to me that they were like three different things because I was experiencing them all at the same time. But somehow having them all intermittently like that, but like together, it took me years to even realize that it's not the same person voicing Velma between Where Are You and the Scooby-Doo show. And yet they sound completely different. They don't sound the same at all. And yet, because I was just growing up with like, it was just all of it all at one time, I didn't make a distinction between any of it. I was just like, oh, it's Scooby. And that included two voices for Velma and Scrappy Doo and these little shorts and these longer episodes. And it kind of just like, there was no reason for me to dislike him because I just consumed it all at the same time as if it was all brand new.
Joel, what is your first unpopular opinion?
I just want to tell a quick Scrappy story that just came into my mind. I went to Canada's Wonderland as a kid. It was probably 1985. And you get like a stamp of a cartoon character so you can leave the park and come back in. And it was a Scrappy stamp. And I was with my cousin and he was so pissed off. Like, why couldn't they give us Scooby? I'm like, well, Scrappy's Scooby. And he's like, no, I want Scooby. I don't want this. So there was a bit of Scrappy hate back then. My first unpopular opinion, I was trying to come up with things that, because I share a lot of opinions with you two that might be unpopular, but because we're always talking, they don't seem unpopular to me. But my unpopular opinion is that I didn't think the two sequel movies, Return to Zombie Island and the 13 Ghost ones, were that bad. They have their faults, but as a whole, they're all right. I know Return to Zombie Island sucks as a direct sequel, and the same with, not having Scrappy and the 13 Ghosts. But if you just watch it with low expectations, they're pretty good.
That was going to be my question. Were you looking at the movies as sequels or were you looking at the movies as standalone movies? Because I remember watching them and thinking as sequels, they were awful. But if you were just looking at them as a standalone movie, then yeah, they really weren't that bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't look at sequels anymore that come out more than 3 or 4 years later as like a sequel in most cases because it just doesn't work. Too much time has passed. You can't really doesn't really work well. So I just never get my highest hopes up high about sequels anymore. And there's some franchises that do it well, but for the most part, I learned my lesson with the first Star Wars sequel that came out in 1999. Like everyone was hyped up for that, and then people would see it 2 or 3 times in the theater, going, "No, I love this movie," and then we realized it sucked. And now people do have a love for it now, but I think it still kind of sucks compared to the original three. So after that, I just look at anything as not a true sequel, and I'm happy with. Well, I'd rather watch Zombie Island versus Return to Zombie Island, but yeah, uh, there are a couple of people who like Return to Zombie Island better than Zombie Island, which is very unpopular. I wouldn't go that far.
That is definitely a very unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy, what are your thoughts on those movies not being awful movies?
Yeah, I would definitely, I could go along with what Joel is saying because there are so many things now where it's like, yeah, as long as you don't think of it in the terms of what it's supposed to be and you look at it as something completely separate, you can deal with it. I think for me, like my ability to do that varies depending on what the thing is and how much of a disappointment it was or how much of a missed opportunity it was. So I know especially, I mean, the Return to Zombie Island I wasn't as excited about because Zombie Island wrapped up in a way that's like it was a perfect ending. There was nothing wrong with that ending. It didn't really leave it open for anything. Curse of the 13th Ghost, however, had super high expectations for that because there was room there for them to like put a nice little bow on something that had been left open for so long. And as far as them doing that, I think they blew it. And so I didn't enjoy it at all. So I could probably watch Return to Zombie Island and be like, okay, I don't particularly like this because it's too silly, but it's fine. Curse of the 13th Ghost, I don't know that I could force myself to go that far to be like, oh yeah, it was good, because I also feel like it was really disappointing that they kind of redeemed Flim Flam and made him actually a pretty likable character, which is a total departure from what he was. And he was wasted though for me because the whole rest of the movie, I'm just like, what is even the point of this? Why are we even doing this? And you did this cool thing with Flim Flam for nothing for me. So I would say that one is still just kind of a crummy movie. But yes, for sure, there is a lot of merit to just like, don't think of it as Scooby, think of it as this one thing on its own. And like, yeah, there's definitely way worse stuff out there.
Yeah, I'd agree that there's way worse stuff out there. But as sequels, they're not good.
Yeah.
No.
So if you're going to watch them, definitely watch them as standalone movies that there was nothing before that mattered, and you'll enjoy them more. My first unpopular opinion is Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated was not a great series. It was okay. It was okay. I think that it was a little too violent for the gang. I mean, they didn't show it, but they insinuated that people died. The villains were definitely some of the scarier villains that they've created. I mean, they were like throwing bombs at the gang, or you had cicadas coming up through the shower and attacking people, and yeah. Having the overarching storyline was kind of cool, but like watching Fred have a breakdown, like I just feel like he's strong and he's not going to do that. They took a lot away from him as a character, I think. So, Wendy, your thoughts on Mystery Inc. not being a great series?
Yeah, I agree 110%. Emasculating Fred like that, there's no forgiveness for that in my book. It was so unnecessary. I get why people like it, but it's not for me. I don't particularly like, especially in a cartoon, because I feel like cartoons should have a high level of rewatchability. Now, that just might be being spoiled with, Hanna-Barbera, but it's not just Hanna-Barbera. I can think of a lot of cartoons that were from other studios that when I was a kid, reruns came on, you watched them. Beetlejuice, the Addams Family cartoon. I loved Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. All of those cartoons, high level of rewatchability. Even if you've seen it 15 times, you can watch it 16 and you are still going to enjoy it, even though you know exactly what's going to happen. You can probably mouth along with a lot of the dialogue. You get a show that's a serial instead of a procedural. You can't really, I guess Mystery Incorporated, I suppose you could watch some of it not in order and it would be okay. But there's definitely going to be stuff that you're missing that you're not going to pick up on, references that they're making to this overarching storyline. So, number one, right then and there, I'm not interested in that in a cartoon because I want to be able to just like sit down and pick whichever one. I don't want to have to think too much about like, what did I miss? And definitely, Fred is not the only character that I had issues with. Daphne sort of got her. Well, I can't even think of what years these came out. Did Mystery Incorporated? I guess it came out before Be Cool, didn't it? Be Cool came after it. Okay, so Daphne in Mystery Incorporated at least is not whatever they did to her in Be Cool, which is kind of like the equivalent of what they did to Fred in Mystery Incorporated. So there's so many characters though that are just like they're dumbed down and they're doing it for humor, but for somebody like me, it's not funny. Making somebody an idiot, I don't find anything funny about that. That's lazy writing to me. If you have to just like make a joke out of everybody, and that's lazy writing. So yeah, I watched through Mystery Incorporated. I don't think I would ever rewatch it again unless I had a very, very particular reason to, like we were doing a panel about it. Not rewatchable for me. Did not like the characters. And some of the stories are, they're interesting, but I don't know. It's overrated, I think.
Joel, your thoughts on my unpopular opinion of Scooby Mystery Inc. not being the best series?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's not the best. I'd say, like when you said, it's overrated. It seems to be like, it seems to catch like an audience who maybe caught it in their teens. I think they kind of maybe like it more. When I did watch it, I kind of liked it. Like when it was on TV, I'm like, yeah, this isn't bad, but I didn't remember anything about it. And then I got the DVD and I was like trying to watch it. I'm like, this is actually kind of boring and dull. And what's with this relationship shit? And
Yeah.
why is Scooby and Shaggy fighting? They never fight. Like this is just all wrong. And I think it had a lot of potential. And I, I just don't think TV should be serialized either. I don't think people should evolve in a TV show. I think as people, we want to just see the same tropes over and over. We want Scooby to be Scooby. We want Shaggy to be Shaggy. And if you want to do a serial, put it in a movie format or do a graphic novel. And I think Mr. Ink would be a really good graphic novel because then you cut out all the stuff you don't need, like Fred being dumb and all the characters. Just you got to kind of be a little bit more lean because you only have like 22 pages in a comic book to work with. And I think it'd just be better because it just cut all the garbage. Just give me the story, and then if I forget something, I can go back, reread it, and remember, and I know the order. I don't have to like do all this work to figure out what things are ordering. If I miss something, I can just, I'd rather have that be a graphic novel than a TV show. I admire their ambition, and I think it gets a lot of, I think its fans kind of give it more credit than it's due because they're coming out and saying things, oh, this did all these concepts of like that we're seeing now with this with gender politics and stuff like that, like Hot Dog Water and Velma's relationship that maybe more subtle back then, but they're saying, oh, that's what we intended back then. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I think it had more to do with gender politics. It didn't have more to do with gender politics back then, but they're making it seem like it was ahead of its time when it really, I don't know if it was or not, but yeah, overrated.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest issues I had with it was the relationships, because I'm not a fan of relationships in Scooby-Doo. Like, just let them be friends and let them solve mysteries. It doesn't have to be like, oh, Fred and Daphne are dating and Velma and Shaggy are dating, and it's okay to not have those relationships in it. It's a cartoon, so I feel like it's kind of unnecessary. But yeah, to make Shaggy and Scooby fight, I felt like that really took away from their relationship. That was the one thing that I didn't like in Scoob, was when they like put Shaggy and Scooby against each other. I just don't like that.
I hated that about Scoob.
Mhm. Wendy, your next unpopular opinion?
Okay, well, let's just piggyback right on what we were just saying. My unpopular opinion is that there is absolutely no need for relationships or sexuality in Scooby-Doo, either hetero or homo. I don't care. It's not one or the other. It's all of it. It is unnecessary. Number one, and okay, call me an old lady. I don't care. Number one, they're teenagers. In all these years, have we not yet learned that it's maybe not the best idea to encourage teenagers to go around having sex with everybody? I'm just saying it's maybe not the best idea. And also, it's totally unnecessary because it's supposed to be a show about solving mysteries. Why do we need to like muddy that up with a bunch of relationships? That has nothing, who's dating who has absolutely nothing to do with the mystery or the plot. So complete waste of time. And I would say that it actually would make Scooby less inclusive to start slapping labels on people, start putting them into relationships, because as long as you leave everyone generic and, they're a group and they're solving mysteries, they're going out, they're doing things, and you're not muddying it all up with like, ooh, who's doing what with who, then that leaves a ton of room for imagination. So no matter who is watching your show, they are free to associate with those characters however they want. That is your imagination. You go right ahead. Whatever you want to imagine, that is your business. That's fine. But the job of the cartoon is supposed to be to inspire creativity and imagination in the viewer. If you start telling the viewer every little detail about every little thing, there's no room left for your imagination. When you're reading a book, some authors, my goodness, 2 pages in, and all they've done is describe everything that is on the fireplace mantle. And it's like, okay, well, I'm sure that you enjoyed writing that, but I would rather that you just give me a brief description of the room and the atmosphere and the person that owns it, and let my brain go to work and creatively craft a visual for me to enjoy while I'm reading your story. So by mucking around with all that kind of stuff, well, now you're making it harder for people to associate with the characters and what's going on. And number 4, Scooby's for kids. It's inappropriate. We don't need to be telling our kids like, oh, you're 6 years old, you got to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you got to date somebody. Like, no, you don't. And honestly, the older that you get, the more you understand when your parents were like, you're not dating anybody till you're 30. Because you know what? Most people would probably be better off if they waited that long to choose their partner. But so yeah, Scooby's target audience, it should never change. It is for children. Children do not need that in their cartoon. We are just trying to foster imagination and excitement and enjoyment and a little bit of critical thinking. And here's a little bit of morality so that your kid doesn't go around, being a jerk to everybody, So any kind of relationships and sexuality in Scooby, not only unnecessary, but to me, very detrimental on a whole host of levels.
I really didn't want my kids to learn how to be in a relationship by what they saw in cartoons.
Yeah.
Because we saw from Mystery Inc. that Velma and Shaggy's relationship was very toxic. And, I didn't want my kids to be like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be in a relationship. I'm supposed to tell somebody what to do, or they're supposed to tell me what to do. And so, yeah. Joel, your thoughts on the relationships being unpopular?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's just maybe a younger generation who wants the relationship stuff because they're confused and horny. But yeah, not me, not ever. Don't care about relationships in my Scooby-Doo. Don't want it. Keep it away. If you want something like that, watch the billion other relationship shows that are out there.
Yeah, there's so many live action shows that are based on, relationships and that kind of thing. I feel like that's the type of thing that's more for, older teens or like older than that. I just kids' cartoons should be fun, they should be silly, they should be entertaining, they shouldn't be full of throwing stuff in their face. This is what your values should be. This is how dating should be. This is how you should live your life, blah, blah, blah. Like, why can't it just be fun? Joel, your next unpopular opinion?
This one might sting a little, but for you two, I think there's too many do's in the
Wow.
family.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. And they don't do enough with any of them. Like we only see Scooby D once. Scooby Doo, 5, 7 episodes, I forget, never returned. Money Doo, sure we got some great artwork out of it, but too many do's. If you're gonna do do's, just keep, I don't know, maybe do something with them instead of introducing a revolving door of do's.
Wendy, your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'd never thought about it in those terms, but I can't very well disagree with it either. I'm not really sure how to make this point, so I don't know that it's going to be valid, but as Joel was saying that, I was thinking about later iterations of Scooby where I feel like, and again, I may not even be remembering this correctly, but I just feel like at some point, Daphne had like 75 million relatives. They go to Scotland. She's got a bunch of relatives. I feel like I don't know if it was in Mystery Inc. or if I just imagined it, but I feel like there was some series where we met other relatives of hers. I don't know. It felt like there was just like every time you turned around, there's another Daphne, like family member. And I'm like, why? I don't care about her family. I care about her. So I can kind of see Joel's point that, yeah, there's like all of these family members, but they're also just like one and done, which is not necessarily bad, but it's also maybe pointless. Like, whoopsie-doo. I don't know. I would be saying whoopsie-doo if I created whoopsie-doo, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, really, all we needed was Scrappy, so it's fine.
Scrappy was the first one I thought of to get rid of. Too many do's, see a Scrappy.
Think of how many series you'd have to get rid of, though.
True.
Well,
That
I don't
is
think
true.
Nikki would be crying over that because then she wouldn't have to rewatch
Considering
them.
I end up watching all of the episodes for like the food panels and stuff, yeah, I wouldn't be crying if I got to watch less Scrappy, that's for sure. Yeah. I guess I see the point. Like, if they're just gonna bring them for one episode, then why? I mean, I think at this point we need like a Do family reunion.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, they could bring them all back. They could have everybody's family member that we've ever seen, bring them all back, have a little family reunion. I think that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And also, why do they have to have such weird personalities too? Like Whoopsie Doo. Why?
Mumsy Doo's voice.
Yeah, I see your point with that. All right. My next unpopular opinion is that Shaggy is not a stoner.
Mm.
And I say that that's an unpopular opinion because I'm so tired of everyone saying that he is. It's annoying. And all the merchandise that's being made now with Shaggy and Scooby like smoking. Come on. Come on. Joel, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's a shame that's an unpopular opinion. And that stoner culture is just so prevalent and it's just such, you know, stoner humor is just it bothers me when people don't outgrow it, I guess. Like sure Cheech and Chong built their career on it and they might have been like at the forefront, but then you and I like those movies. But with Scooby and Shaggy, like, yeah, I just want to go into a Hot Topic or Spencer's and find a Scooby t-shirt that doesn't have a joint on it, you know? Like, it just frustrates me to no end that the only merchandise I can buy near me for clothing has pot humor on it. And I'm like, I don't want this stuff because Scooby-Doo's for kids. And I don't want to, like, even though pot's legal in Canada, like, I'm sure if you're a kid, you can buy it now. I don't want to, like, you know, push that narrative on people that Scooby and pot are go hand in hand when they don't. They never really did. It just, I think it's a joke that started off like you know, the snowball effect where it just was a small kind of minor joke and now it's just this big boulder of stuff that's just I don't know. I don't know. I'll shut up because I have nothing really to say other than rage.
I just think it's, again, it's weird. You're taking a characters made for kids and you're saying that they're stoners.
Yeah.
Like clearly they're not. They're made for kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy, your thoughts?
Yeah, agree completely. And I also think that this is yet another example of something that started out as just this little like niche group of people that were perverted, and suddenly it became the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now everyone is again retroactively being like, oh, no, it was always like that. And so therefore it was that. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. No, your perception of everything is so off. Wasn't a thing back then. That was not what they were trying to do. Again, we have talked to plenty of people and they all get upset at that nonsense. And once again, I just want to ask people, like, if you are the kind of person that wants that and that you're trying to push that narrative, I think you need to take like a good, strong look at yourself and be like, what am I doing with my life? And who am I as a person? Because something is wrong with you. And I'm never going to back down from that stance. There is something wrong with people who feel like it is their duty in life to like dirty up stuff that's good and clean and wholesome. Something is wrong with you. And you need some kind of reality check, you know? And so I feel that is that stoner stuff. I mean, guys, like enough already. It's not a thing. It's never been a thing. It's never going to be a thing. And honestly, Warner Brothers, where is your quality control? Where are the lawsuits cracking down on companies that are taking your characters and using them to promote unsafe practices for children? Because there was a time in this world where if you got caught doing that, you were going to get slapped with a lawsuit and a cease and desist. And now, who cares? Who in the store? There it is. It's everywhere. And that is unexcusable. And the people who want to claim that they own Scooby-Doo, get out there, do your job, protect your property, because you're not doing a very good job. The fact that we're even still having to like bring this up and talk about it at this point in time is ridiculous. Like, we need to lay this to bed. Cannot be the unpopular opinion anymore. It needs to be just the facts. This is not a thing.
Yeah. We need to stop with the Shaggy's a stoner. Yeah. Wendy, your next unpopular opinion?
My unpopular opinion. All of, or at least the majority, or at least all of classic Scooby, the clues to the mysteries make logical sense and make the mysteries legitimately solvable. However, the story is still cleverly enough written that if you tell me that you could watch any of those episodes for the first time and you know exactly what and who and when and where and how, you're a liar. So many people, including people we've talked to, whose names I will not bring up because I will get mad, who are like, oh, it's so easy, like a child, I knew exactly who it was. Now, you knew who it was because you have had 50 plus years of people talking about the show. How could you not know at this point? Like, what planet do you live on? There's no way. There's no way that the majority of those classic Scooby episodes that any of us on the first watch are going to be able to know who did it. That is how cleverly they are written. However, if you get to the end of the episode and you look back at all of the clues that they gave you, none of the clues don't belong. Now, would it be nice to have a little more information and a few more clues along the way? Sure, of course. But kudos to the writers. I definitely think that those are solvable mysteries in relation to the show, but are still clever enough that it's not obvious. And anyone who is still going to try to argue with me that it is very obvious, I don't believe you.
Joel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, none of it was ever obvious to me. And aside from a handful of episodes that I've watched over and over again, well, I've watched them all over again, but probably the ones that weren't on VHS tapes, because I watched the hell of those VHS tapes. I forget when on rewatches who's the villain and what the clues are, and I'm always surprised. So yeah, I would agree. I think people maybe are lying if they say something's obvious, or maybe they've watched it so many times it's become obvious to them. But I think first watch, not obvious.
Yeah, I think at some point I just gave up trying to ever figure out who it was and just like enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I never guessed right. It was like I watched The Masked Singer. I never know who those people are. It's very rare when I can figure that out. So Scooby is pretty much the same for me. Joel, your next unpopular opinion?
This one's unpopular with what I see on the internet, what the kids are talking about. Probably not unpopular with you too. Um, Cyber Chase and Alien Invaders do not belong in the same sentence as Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost. They're Everyone puts them all four together as like the best quadrilogy, and I'm like, no, there's no quadrilogy here. There's two and two, and the first two are way miles above better than the other two.
I totally agree with that. And I actually had that as one of mine. That, yeah, people love Cyber Chase, and I don't even understand the love for Cyber Chase because there's no plot.
No, I think it's because it brought back some classic monsters. So you saw the Gator
Mhm.
Ghoul and Iron Face.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I think elevates it up. Maybe they like their Game Boy and they equate it with like playing video games and stuff, but yeah, there's no plot.
And Alien Invaders was so boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wendy, your thoughts?
I mean, I think we all know my thoughts on Alien Invaders. Yeah, I'm not even gonna, I have nothing to add. 100% agree. Two of these things are not like the others. And I'm surprised that I get, it must just be like time period that they came as like a little block in those years. Like, I'm sure that that must be what it is, because yes, those first two are like this, even the styling of it in both visuals, I would say, and in the story writing of it, they're miles apart. They're not the same beast at all. They're very, very different. So yeah, agree completely. I don't get the love for those last two. I understand the love for the first two. I don't for the second two. They're fine, and they're definitely better than some of the stuff that came after it. But yeah, it's weirdly. I'm always surprised when people cite those as like their favorites.
Hmm. My next unpopular opinion is something that Joel mentioned on an earlier panel.
Okay.
That Scrappy did not save the franchise. Zombie Island saved the franchise.
Hmm.
And he mentioned that, and I, ever since that, have like totally clung to it. And I 100% agree that that is true. That Zombie Island saved Scooby, and that's why we got everything that we got after it. Joel, you said it, you have to agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Scooby became a shill for McDonald's and toys and commercials with the shorts. It was just they're just pumping out content like what we kind of see now with movies nowadays. Everything's like a superhero movie or a video game movie like Minecraft, and there's no story to these things. There's no where Zombie Island had a story, and it was a lot of love and attention and care was put into that story. Not saying that I think the artists working on those shorts put a lot of love and effort into it, but it was everything in the 80s just was there's laws. It has to do with laws that came into play later. Everything was just back then just became like, it just wasn't the same, and it was just to sell stuff. Just 7 minutes on, commercial, 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 7 minutes, serial, just commercials, bombarded with commercials. It was the excess of the 80s. And I don't want to like put down the creators from those because I think, they did a wonderful job, but Zombie Island saved Scooby-Doo. It just reignited what people loved about Scooby-Doo. Where Are You again, I think, and the Scooby-Doo show.
And I think from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You until Pup, like they were fairly close together. And then you had that break, and then Zombie Island came out. And yeah, like that's what people wanted more Scooby after that. Wendy, your thoughts?
Well, one of my unpopular opinions was actually that Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is overrated, and that there are people who claim that it saved the franchise, and I strongly disagree. Scooby had been around for 29 years. And if Scooby was not still popular, Zombie Island would have never been made. Because with Zombie Island, there is a huge departure from classic Scooby. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself because one of my other popular opinions, which involves another series, dovetails into this, so I don't want to like jump ahead to it, but I think that there is a huge difference between saved and changed. So Zombie Island took a step through the door that something else opened for it in taking classic Scooby and being like, we're done, let's do something new. Now, yes, Zombie Island had enough of that classic feel to try and appeal to classic fans, while also trying to attract a whole new generation of kids to something that they were not familiar with yet. But the thought that it saved it, it didn't need saving. It was already, again, 29 years of Scooby. People still clearly loved it because they watched Zombie Island. Did it change the Scooby franchise, though? Irrevocably, yes. It made a huge change to the franchise. I would argue that the change was not for the better, because it kicked open that door that allowed people to say, this is not my property, but now I have a right to make it whatever I want it to be, and to bastardize it and to molest it. And I love Zombie Island. I didn't like it when it first came out because it was, to me, too much of a departure from classic Scooby. I didn't like the voicing. But now it's a great movie. I could watch it over and over, no problem. But that does not change the fact that it only takes one little snowball at the top of the hill, and you kick it down the hill, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it's a freaking avalanche and it's burying and killing people. So Zombie Island, still a pretty small little ball, does not change the fact that that snowball continued down that hill to the point that we ended up with Velma. If Zombie Island had never been made, Velma would have never, ever, ever stood a chance in hell of being created. So, saved the franchise? I say no. Changed it, though? Absolutely.
Joel, do you have a rebuttal to that?
We might have to do a whole panel on this.
Okay. I'll keep
I
that in
respect
mind.
I respect Winnie's opinion.
Thank you.
Do not let it skew your opinion, though.
It doesn't skew my opinion, no.
Okay. Wendy, your next unpopular opinion?
Okay, well, this will be the time for this then. Firstly, apologies to Scott, whose heart I am about to break into a million little pieces, and I'm very sorry. This has nothing to do with you just because you worked on it very hard. I understand that. What was wrong with it was not your fault, so I'm sorry. But my unpopular opinion is that a pup named Scooby-Doo killed Scooby. Now, I am not saying that it's a terrible series. I'm not saying that I hate it as a series. It's not my favorite. I'm not really into it, but it's fine. But Pup is the first time where the writers changed the integrity and the personality of the characters. Now, yes, I understand in 13 Ghosts, we get the introduction of real ghosts and monsters, but that a departure or a tweaking of what is in your story is not the same as changing what makes your characters who they are. That is a totally different thing to me. So I am not saying that there is not room to tweak things in a franchise, but there are some things that you do not do. If you want it to remain a part of the franchise, you cannot change the integrity of the characters. And that is exactly what we got with Pup Scooby. And it's very unfortunate because Velma is a really cute little character in that series, but Daphne is a spoiled little bitch. Freddy is an absolute moron. There is no one can justify to me after watching classic Scooby and seeing what wonderful characters Fred and Daphne are, no one can justify to me what the writers did to them in Pup Scooby. It wasn't funny. It wasn't fun. It was an insult to those characters and their fans. And again, back to my analogy of the snowball rolling down the hill. All you have to do is open the door a crack. And we went from all those years of, yes, there were little tweaks here and there to even the formula, but they never deviated away from, these are our core characters. This is what they stand for. This is who they are. The end. And we're not going to mess with that. As soon as Pup Scooby just pushed that door open a crack for like, maybe the characters are open for interpretation. Nothing is open, this an unpopular opinion in the art world, okay? Art is not open to interpretation by anyone except for the artist. And I will die on that hill. So if you didn't create the franchise, you have no right to change the integrity of the characters. If you are going to do that, you have essentially made brand new characters and you need to make your own show and stop piggybacking on a franchise's popularity that you are simply turning into whatever you want and you just want a leg up because it's already popular. Not okay. Not okay at all. Every bad thing that has ever happened in the Scooby franchise happened because Pup opened that door. And I don't like saying that because I'm sure that the people that worked on it, even the ones whose idea it was, not the ones who were just doing their job, but I'm sure that they thought it was a good idea. I know Scott has said that he never looked at Pup, even when he was working on it, as like canon. He looked at it as like a parody of Scooby. That's valid, but again, you can't unring that bell. You ring a bell and that sound is out there. And that's why it is such a shame that as time has gone on, we as creators, we as consumers have completely lost sight of like protecting what something is, which is so ironic in a world that is so obsessed with like, let me be who I am, no matter what. And I'm like, okay, but then why can't you let other people's characters be what they are? So I credit Pup Scooby with the beginning of the end of Scooby, because if it wasn't for Pup, if they had never taken that step to change Scooby to the point that he became a full-on parody spoof of himself, they killed the franchise. They killed Scooby the way that Scooby was intended to be. Again, I'm not saying that there is nothing of value that came after it or that it has no value, but they killed Scooby. The Scooby that they created and everything that came after him, he's somebody different, to the point that now every Scooby thing we get, it is just a spoof. They are caricatures of themselves. And for someone who is a creative person, that breaks my heart, because people put their all into making those characters who and what they were, and it survived all of those years. When you are done with the characters the way they are, you end it and you make new characters. This changing stuff to make it suit the time or what you want, it's not cool. And I'm sad that something that actually had a ton of potential. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Pup Scooby. Can you imagine Pup Scooby if they had played it straight? Maybe a little bit sillier than classic Scooby, but way more straight than what they played it. And you legitimately tried to take those teenagers and look at how they would have been when they were younger and then send them out to solve like proper mysteries. there was potential there for them to do that. I mean, they were trying to capitalize on the whole like little kid shtick that was like the 80s. You know, it was very popular, and I get it. But they took it way too far. They opened a door that they could not close, and everything has suffered since then.
Joel, your thoughts?
Well, Wendy's doing a lot of calculus here, and I'm playing checkers. Um, Probably deserves another panel on its own too. I I think Scooby kind of the crack open for me. I see Wendy's point. I think the crack open for me is when they shifted Scooby to walking on two legs and going on blind dates and really dumbing him down, where he's like does something and they're like, Scooby, you saved the day, and he's like, I did. And he's always saying, I did? I did that? That wasn't Scooby to me, really. That's where I was doing my reviews and I just got so depressed watching those because they made Scooby really dumb, and he's not dumb. If you watch Never Ape an Ape Man, he's very protective of Daphne. He runs after the ape man, and it's a great scene. And then 5 years later, I don't know, he's just not my Scooby. But I get your point with Pup. Um, I don't know if I ever viewed it as parody, but I viewed it maybe through the lens of it being just a lab experiment at the time. I didn't, like Scott said, it's not canon to me. I Won't Break Scott's Heart. I really like that series from what I remember. I haven't watched it in a while, but I'm sure I'd still like it. Everything was cute. And it was kind of like a fad too. They're working off like the 50s. That was popular again because movies like Stand By Me and things like that soundtrack, Little Shop of Horrors kind of she-bop soundtrack intro, and 50s were just big in the 80s. And then Muppet Babies, Flintstone Kids, Little Archie, stuff like that, really popular. Let's work that in Scooby-Doo. But yeah, I get your point too. Um, I don't know if I can argue with it.
I think that it might have been cool to see the characters in a different style. Like I really like the design of Scooby and Velma, but I now that we've seen like baby Scooby, it would have been really fun to have done it more in that type of style, like the Muppet Babies kind of style.
Yeah.
And made it just fun and yeah, like you said, going out, solving mysteries, keeping to the formula and having them do what they do, but they're just kids. And they could make it a little more goofy, but yeah, I always have a hard time watching Pup. The hardest thing for me is those dance sequences during the chase scenes. They like make my blood pressure go up. Joel, your next unpopular opinion?
Uh, I think season 2 of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You would have been a much better show. And this pains me to say this, if they didn't have the chase music in it. And I love those chase songs, but I just think they interrupt the flow of the series, of the episodes, and you go from like creepy to like funny, happy songs, and then you can't come back from that.
Wendy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%, which it pains me to say that too, because the chase songs are like some of the best music that has ever been, in my opinion. They are perfection. There's nothing about those songs that I would ever change. I just don't necessarily want them in Scooby. So I don't, I would like to, well, I'm sure that it was more just like, I think Scooby originally was meant to be like a musical kind of thing, and they just couldn't get that out of their system. So season 2 rolled around and they're like, we're going to get that music in there one way or another. And Scooby just doesn't need that for me. And like Joel said, and another thing too is that I do feel like some of the villains and the storylines in season 2 could have been like aggressively scary without the chase scene. Some of those villains are really cool, and it just takes you completely out of that moment. Even though, like, and it's, you can't criticize that series either, even with the chase scenes, because it's still amazing. Even with that music and you know, it is still amazing, but I do prefer it without that in it. I think it's unnecessary, and it just like creates this weird sort of separation and like kills the vibe. It kills that spookiness that they've spent so much time trying to build up to, and then it's just like, oh, we're just gonna dump it off. So I mean, maybe that would have been better for younger kids because they wouldn't have gotten as scared. But yeah, I didn't mind being a little bit scared with my shows when I was a kid. So yeah, I agree. It would have been better maybe without them.
I'm gonna disagree. I think that the chase songs made the chase scene more fun. I do see where it would have gone from scary to not as scary, but because the show was made for kids, it made sense that they did it that way, because you don't want kids to be completely terrified watching this cartoon. You need something to kind of like dull that down. And I think the chase songs really did that for it. So I disagree. I really like the chase songs, and the songs themselves are great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My next unpopular opinion is that Scooby should not be live action. I do not think that he translated well to live action. Matthew Lillard, the perfect Shaggy. You're never going to find a better Shaggy than him. I think Linda Cardellini was a great Velma, but overall, I just don't think Scooby should be live action. Scooby should remain animated. Wendy?
I can't think of a single animated series that they then turned into live action that I thought was successful. Some things just don't need to be done. Like, we don't need cars that drive themselves. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. So for me, I've never, ever been a fan of taking something animated and making it live action. I'm not even a fan of the stuff where they like mix the two and they have like a little live action sequence in a cartoon, or they have like a little animated sequence in a regular show. I'm not a fan of that. I just don't think that animation is meant to be translated into real life. Why? I would like someone to just explain to me, like, why do we even want to do that? Because I cannot think of a single reason to do it.
Joel?
Yeah, we all park our car in the same garage for this one. I don't like the live action one. The four of them could do without. Glad it has its fans. Glad it introduced people to Scooby-Doo. Not for me at all.
It definitely did introduce people to Scooby, which, yeah, that's a good thing. But I feel like they got maybe not the worst introduction to Scooby, but not the greatest, because then everything that they've watched after being introduced to live action to them isn't great because it's animated and it's not the same. So, Wendy, your next unpopular opinion?
Although we all have this terrible tendency of singling out Daphne as being danger prone, my unpopular opinion is that every single member of the gang is just as danger prone as Daphne, if not more so. How many times has Velma lost her glasses in the middle of a dangerous situation and is just like crawling around looking for them, has no idea where she is or who's around, has a conversation with a skeleton? That's more danger prone than Daphne, flicking the wrong switch or tripping over a board. Freddy, also a little bit danger prone. Gets hoisted up, like a side of beef, falls through the floor into some flour. And Shaggy and Scooby, I mean, have we all watched the show? Every single episode, they're doing something that I think would qualify them as danger prone. So, if anything, I think Daphne is perhaps the least danger prone member of the gang. And yet, because I'm assuming the shtick of, damsel in distress and, I don't know, bubble headed, she's not blonde, but I don't know if that was sort of like why that came about. But yeah, Daphne, not the most danger prone person in the gang. So I don't know that she deserves that moniker.
Joel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd agree. They're all if you're in a haunted house in an old building and you're wandering around, you're gonna attract some danger no matter who you are. Don't be going in these places. They're full of mold and things you don't want to be breathing in, and that's the real danger. And then you could fall through floors and creaky things. Um, there's probably homeless people in there want to stab you. But yeah, yeah, no, it's a really good point. They all have their fair share of danger, and I think it just worked for Daphne because it just rolls off the tongue,
That's true.
and it just stuck with her. Everyone likes saying it. It's like the word salsa. We all like saying the word salsa. We all like saying danger prone Daphne.
It's true. It does just kind of fit with her name. But yeah, everyone has gotten into some type of danger. And yeah. Yeah. I never really thought of it that way. But
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Joel, your next unpopular opinion?
This one's a little bit weak because I'm very hypocritical towards it, but I think I would have been happy. And this just spawned another question for me is like, if you could go back, I think Wendy, you got me thinking about this, and change one thing in the Scooby-Doo. And I don't want you to answer this question because,
We're actually not going to answer this question because
Yeah.
it is part of another panel we're going to be doing at some point.
oh, okay. So if you could change one thing about Scooby-Doo, what would it be? To change the trajectory,
Okay.
like Wendy meant. So we don't end over Velma. So
Mhm.
with Wendy, no, it could be pup named Scooby-Doo. You have to pay attention, watch for that panel to see if that's your answer. Um, but mine, and I don't think this is it, but I'm like, I might have been happy if they never introduced guest stars to Scooby-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
Like in both new Scooby-Doo movies and Guess Who, or are you basing it more on one series than another?
Well, I think I'd have to put it into everything because if you didn't have new Scooby-Doo movies, you wouldn't have had Guess Who.
True.
And then there's the last several movies, they all had guest stars, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But then there's so much. I don't love any of those Scooby-Doo movies, but I do like the fact that they made 3 Globetrotter Scooby-Doo ones. And my fault with them is if they were just a half hour long, they would have been great. But because they were nearly an hour, they were just too much padding.
Yeah. Wendy, your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I don't think that even back then that Scooby was ever a character that needed celebrity backing. Because you figure like that's really only the second series that they made. It's pretty early in Scooby's life. And I mean, obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know what their ratings were and all of that, but I kind of the way that I can enjoy the new Scooby-Doo movies is if I think of it as Hanna-Barbera's nod to 66 Batman, where it was just like it became the novelty, like who can we get this week to play some kooky villain? And, I don't necessarily think it was about the star power. I think it was about just making a cool show and seeing where they could go with it. So I like to think that that was the thought behind the new Scooby-Doo movies, where it wasn't that they thought that Scooby needed the celebrities. I get that all of those celebrities were obviously current celebrities at the time, but I would also argue that maybe they were already not I am not saying they were has-beens or anything like that, but already maybe past their prime. And perhaps it was more about promoting the celebrities a little bit on a show that was popular rather than the other way around. Either way, though, it was an odd pairing, taking a show like Scooby and then just like dropping these celebrities into it. It was an odd choice for me. I don't necessarily think that it worked, but I don't hate it either. I think that it could have been better, but did we need celebrities in Scooby? No, I think that the from the very first episode, Scooby was born a celebrity, and he's never needed anything or anyone to make him stand out. He was a star from day one. They hit on something with Scooby that I don't think that they ever were able to replicate, and I'm not sure that anything came before him that was quite like that either, that just like checked all those boxes. So it was almost like a demotion for him to force him to like share screen time with real celebrities to me. But yeah, I would agree it wasn't necessary, and I don't think it really added anything overly special other than that shot of Scooby in the Batmobile, and then all of a sudden he's wearing Batman's cowl. That series was worth putting up with just for that one scene and that like one screenshot where Scooby's in the Batmobile.
I think having the guest stars was fun, but at the same time, it's kind of dated. Like having the guest stars really dates it a lot because those people are from a certain time period, right?
Right.
But you also risk like the Addams Family one, right? Wednesday is Missing. It's not on DVD because they won't release it.
Right.
So that could potentially be an issue at any time that you have a guest star. Will we ever see that on DVD? I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
And then also, what if one of those celebrities does something, right? Like, celebrities are not immune to crime. They commit crimes too. What happens if someone does something and then what happens to that episode? There are times when I do happy birthday things for some people and it angers people. So, yeah, I can see where having guest stars is an issue. And yeah, Scooby doesn't really need guest stars. Like, he's great. The 5 of them are great on their own. Their dynamic is really good. My final unpopular opinion is that Be Cool Scooby-Doo is underrated. I really like that series. Yes, the animation was very difficult to get used to, but it goes with the writing. And I just think that if you would have had the Where Are You type animation with the Be Cool writing, it would have been really weird. So I think that it was written really well. I think once you really get used to it, like you get used to the animation in it. Somebody really liked Daphne because every episode it's like Daphne has some new quirk. So someone really, really liked her and based the episodes on her, which it's fine. It was interesting. I don't know that some of the things that she did were really added value to the episodes, but it was interesting. Joel, your thoughts?
I haven't watched most of the series. I think I've seen one episode. So no comment at this point in time.
Okay, we'll have to do something to get you to watch them. Wendy?
Okay, well, other than the Velma series, if I was going to get rid of one series, it would 100,000% be cool. And at the risk of making people hate me even more, my one regret from all of my years on the panel is that I went soft on that panel that we talked to John Colton-Berry. Not that I wasn't truthful, but I stifled a lot of how I feel about that and very much gave it the benefit of the doubt. And looking back on it, I am not sure that it deserved even as much as I gave it. So I will say this about it. As a Scooby property, absolutely not. Don't even, no. Not Scooby in any way, shape, or form. Can I appreciate comedy writing in that particular series? Again, not for Scooby, but just as comedy writing. Yes, I can appreciate it. I think that in recent years, and I don't know what caused it, but I think that somehow that series has been like catapulted in people's minds into something that like they think it's underrated. I don't really understand that because I do feel like it's a very weak series on every level. How it looks, how the writing is not Scooby. Again, it is not a criticism of the writing itself, because the writing itself, yes, I like I said, I can absolutely be like, good job. But there's no part of that that had any business aligning itself with Scooby for me. And I don't really look at it. Now, obviously, I didn't write it, so I can't say one way or another, but I've never looked at it as in they liked Daphne, because I just feel like every single episode, they're just making a fool out of her in a different way. And that bothers me because she's not just dumbed down, but she's also been made like weird. I don't even know what the proper terminology is, because weird is not strong enough of a word for what they make her. And I can't get behind it. I would not rewatch that series if someone like put a gun to my head. And for me, it will never be Scooby canon. I mean, I would be like, Joel, don't ever watch it. There's no need to, for like, that would be my opinion. But yeah, I can't agree. For me, that is an unpopular opinion, that it's underrated, because it's the least Scooby that's there, except for Velma for me.
I think part of it for me is my son and I watched it together, and I'm not even sure how old he was, but he really enjoyed it. So it helped me to enjoy it. And at some point he was like, oh, this is my favorite Scooby. So I think I have that, kind of going for it too.
Mm-hmm.
That it was something I was able to watch with him.
Sure.
Yeah. Wendy, your next unpopular opinion?
Okay, well, I have two left, but one of them is very similar to one that you had already found. So I'm going to leave it and I'm just going to jump to my actual final one.
Okay, hold on.
Final.
I'm not going to do the online ones.
No? Any of them?
No, because we're already like an hour and a half into this. So
Part two then. Part two. We'll have
yeah, we can leave that for part two.
Okay. Well, let me just see if I actually need to do that one then. Okay, well, let's do it. I can keep it shorter. Unpopular opinion. We don't need any more new Scooby. I'm not saying we don't need more new Scooby merchandise, but you do not have to have an active franchise in order to make merchandise for it. So while yes, I would like to see Scooby merchandise continue in perpetuity, for me, I'm like, done. Be done. Put Scooby to bed. Let us strictly put all of our focus into preserving and making readily available all of the Scooby that has come already. With the emphasis, of course, being on classic Scooby, I think. No one is doing Scooby any favors at this point. Scooby has become such a joke of itself to me that anytime they announce something new, I'm just cringing. I'm cringing. I don't want to know what it is. I don't want to see it. I don't want to give it a chance. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I do not like what Scooby has become because for me, it's not Scooby anymore. As I said, Scooby's already dead in my mind. I will live in classic Scooby land until I die. We can stop making movies. We can stop making series. Stop trying to recreate Scooby. Let Scooby lie the way he is now. Start something new. No more reboots. No more nothing. Scooby is no longer Scooby. So for me, it is time to stop.
Joel, your thoughts?
I'm so wishy-washy because I want to agree with you, but I have concerns.
Okay.
And then I think about other Hanna-Barbera properties where they don't really make new things, like Flintstones, Jetsons, Johnny Quest, and they've lost their audience a lot of times. Like, there's no really, like, I'm sure a lot of little kids know who Fred Flintstone is, but I don't think it's as prominent anymore. They might just know through their parents, but it's dying off. For better or for worse, history will tell. What I worry about with Scooby is it not just dying off, just not like DVDs aren't sold really to kids. They're sold to parents who recognize the Scooby brand and they buy it for the kid. And the kid watches it like you did in the 80s. And then they go, oh, I kind of like this. There's more. And they go back and they go through hopefully they start off with Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Because that's in print on Blu-ray, DVD. All the good stuff, which I consider good, at least it's still in print. And they can discover it. There's a lot of bad in print still too that I don't love, but they're probably the parents might pick, or their grandparents might pick them up, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You on DVD, or they might go to a thrift store and see it on DVD, which is tough because you Scooby collectors just buy everything with Scooby on it. So you can't really go into a thrift store anymore and buy Scooby DVDs. And if you do find them, they're scratched to death, but I'm trailing off here. So I get your point, but I worry about it just losing its audience for the classics. And I don't think there's a few probably unpopular opinions where they don't love classic Scooby-Doo, but I think the majority love Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I think everyone puts that S tier, or the Scooby-Doo show. Majority, like 99% of people put it up there. And I want that kid to discover that hasn't found Scooby-Doo yet, even if it is being introduced through something that's But if you ask Nikki and I, the Scrappy episodes, for me, it was Nikki she did not like them at all, but people discover it through the stuff that, we're not really fans of, but it's out there, and that's my concern. But I also kind of agree with you because there's enough back catalog of Scooby-Doo that I still have to watch, and I can't keep up, even though, yeah. So I agree and disagree, not wishy-washy, yeah, on this.
I'm with Joel. I agree and I disagree. Like, if we're gonna keep getting stuff like Velma, then yeah, we should just not continue the Scooby franchise and just let it rest where it is. But having new Scooby stuff come out does mean that people are gonna watch it and they're gonna say, oh, this character, he's from like 50 some years ago, and here's some of his original stuff. And I think that's how Scooby gets more of a following is by new stuff being released and people wanting to see the older stuff that was released. So yeah, I'm not totally sure how to feel about that one. Joel, your next unpopular opinion?
Yep, final one. And I came into this panel with only two. But I keep thinking of stuff. I'm just kind of, I didn't know what you two were going to say either. And I didn't want, I don't know. So my last one is that it kind of goes back to, I think maybe my first unpopular opinion, or maybe it was my second. No, it was my first. 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo had way more wasted potential than its sequel. That series is just so out of place. There's too much comedy. It should have been spookier. You had Vincent Price. Kids could handle the scariness at the time. The best box office movies at the time where kids were going to see were like Goonies, Temple of Doom, Gremlins, which is totally Ghostbusters, which is totally in these series, but they made it too goofy, too silly. They wasted a lot of potential. And I think it would have been a better series if they went a little more. I kind of think they insulted the audience with that series. I know it has its fans, but watching it, like every episode just lets me down. They have the scariest drawn villains in a lot of cases because they're real monsters. And they're just silly, most of the villains, which is unfortunate.
Wendy, your thoughts?
I would have to agree with that. Out of all of the Scooby series, 13 Ghosts, I think, had the most potential. And it just didn't live up to any of it. How do you blow something that has Vincent Price in it? I don't know. But they kind of did. They kind of did. It definitely did not need that silly edge to it. And there are moments where you get that more serious and spooky kind of vibe in the show. And it's like, okay, but now keep it there. We don't need a freaking rubber duck in every episode. It's not funny. And the series is not designed, looking at it, is not designed to be that level of humor. So yeah, I mean, I can't say that I would like to see them try to remake it now because I don't trust that anyone is physically capable of like reproducing anything anymore and not just turning it into trash. But if we could go back in time and like have the actual people from the time be like, okay, we're going to change direction on what you're doing, do it like this instead. I think 13 Ghosts is the one that deserves that sort of redemption. And because yeah, they started out, the idea was there and they went for it, and then it's like they chickened out and they're like, no, we can't do that, so let's just make it stupid instead. And I totally agree with Joel. Every time you watch an episode and you're hoping it's going to get better, and it just kind of lets you down because you can see what it could have turned into. So much potential, but never ever lived up to it. So yeah, I agree with that unpopular opinion for sure.
There's so much that they could have done with Vincent Price being in that series, and I really feel like they kind of dropped the ball on that, and the way that they used him. Yeah, it could have been a really great series, but I find that when I try to watch it, it's boring. It's hard to get through. I have such a hard time sitting through that series. I really don't remember the movie as much, the sequel. I just remember that in my blog post, I did make a comment that if you watch it as a standalone movie, it's decent. So,
Yeah.
Wendy, your final unpopular opinion?
Okay, this was one that I was going to make anyway, but it is loosely based also on something that I did read online where someone was basically like, oh, kind of what we've already talked about. You know, people need to quit whining whenever there's a new version of Scooby coming out and you don't like it. Quit gatekeeping Scooby. It's diversifying content and experimentation. Ooh, that's the only way that's the only thing that's kept Scooby going. So quit gatekeeping Scooby. And all these people tired of people like me whining about what they're doing to Scooby. To that, I will say my unpopular opinion, which is, surprise, not everything is for you. Take your own, the point you're trying to make here, and apply it to yourself. The things that you loved when you were little are not required to grow with you. This is not about gatekeeping Scooby. You people are the ones who are refusing to let Scooby just be what he is, even if you no longer like it that way. If you no longer like it that way now that you've grown up, that's your problem. That means it's time for you to leave Scooby in the past and to go find something new that suits your tastes now as an adult or whatever the heck you think you are. Okay? So it's not about gatekeeping. It is about you being selfish and thinking that everything needs to change with you. As my tastes change, the things that I used to like should change with me. That is baloney. That's ridiculous. If you tried to apply that to any other part of your life, people would be like, sit down. You're childish. This is stupid. Like, where are you even getting this from? Not everything is for you. If something needs to be changed in order to now suit you, that simply means that you don't like that anymore. And that's okay. You don't have to like the same stuff that you liked when you were 6, when you're 26 or 36. That's fine. But demanding that those things from your past grow with you to suit your new likes and preferences is ridiculous. That show was made for you when you were 6, not when you're 26 or 36. Therefore, that needs to stay the way that it was for all the other 6-year-olds that are going to come after you. At 36, if your taste has changed a little bit, there's literally millions of other shows out there and franchises for you to get into and enjoy. You do not get to change things that are already established to now suit you the way that you are today. It's not how that stuff works. So, and the irony being that it's those kind of people that want to do that and then whine and cry that we're trying to like gatekeep Scooby. Those are the people who also want to scream and moan when someone sits down and they're like, oh, cool, a new version of whatever. And it's something that they knew from when they were kids. So they sit down with their kids and it's like, oh my God, sex, violence, blood, gore. And they're like, my kid can't watch this. This isn't appropriate for my kids. Those are the people who are like, sit down and shut your mouth. It's not for your kids. Okay, well, good for the goose, good for the gander. It goes both ways. So if you don't want to clean up your smut to make it appropriate for children, why are you constantly demanding that we take what's good and wholesome for the children and pervert it to suit your new adult taste? Hypocrites across the board. So the unpopular opinion is not everything is for you. You do not get to change things to suit your new level of taste. Leave it alone.
Joel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't consider it gatekeeping. I think as we age, we get less excited about things because we've learned what becomes of things when they change things. And like the thing that made me happiest because I finally get revenge is that they're redoing Harry Potter. And everyone's in a rage about it. And I'm like, this is how I felt for the last 30 years about everything because they've ruined everything. And now they're ruining Harry Potter apparently. So that's just my case in point for the people who called me a gatekeeper. Like now you're gatekeeping Harry Potter. You're doing the same thing that you're calling me out for. So yeah, I'd agree with Wendy. On that note too, I'm trying to work this in, but unpopular opinion, it seems nowadays, is that, and this is the opposite of the unpopular opinion. So the opinion that's out there is everyone wants an R-rated Scooby-Doo. They're always excited. Give me an R-rated Scooby-Doo with sex and violence and blood. And that's the last thing Scooby-Doo should be. I think it's way better to make a PG, G-rated Scooby-Doo than an R-rated Scooby-Doo. And cleverly work things in that leave it up to your imagination versus showing me sex, blood, and all that stuff. We don't need that. I think it's just better writing if it leaves it up to your imagination like the original series did. And if that's gatekeeping, well, then sure.
Not only the original series, but I think Scooby Natural was probably the best adult episode of Scooby in the way that they did it.
Right.
Like they didn't really show you anything too crazy, and then the supernatural people were trying to make sure that the gang stayed innocent, and I really thought that they did a great job with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I agree that not everything needs to be made for everybody else. At one point you do have to say, okay, like you want this to be a thing, create new characters. And, do you have to take Velma and Daphne and put them together? Like that's not what Scooby is about. Scooby's about solving mysteries, not them being together. So if that's something that you want, then create new characters. Not saying that people can't have the things they want, just that why does it have to be with characters that are already created? It's like taking Blue from Blue's Clues and making her a serial killer. Like,
Yeah.
do people want that? No. Blue is a dog made for kids. Scooby is a dog made for kids. Like, why does everything have to be turned into something for adults? Do adults not have enough to watch that they need to take things from kids and make it their own?
Exactly.
So I do agree. We need to let kids have their characters and continue to make them so kids can watch them, because Velma came out and a lot of kids wanted to watch it because it's Scooby-Doo related. It's Velma. Like, I want to watch it. I love Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people allowed their kids to watch it. I would never have allowed my kids to watch that. And I only watched 2 episodes of it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Scooby was originally specifically designed so that everyone could enjoy it, because a well-done children's show can be enjoyable for adults to watch, but doesn't always work so good in the other direction. So Scooby's already made for everyone. Why this obsession with trying to make him just for you, which is what making him R-rated or mature is doing? You are taking something that was appropriate for everyone, and now you're saying, no, it's not for you anymore. It's just for me. And the fact that they can't see the irony and the hypocrisy in that is amazing to me.
yeah. Someday someone is going to make an R-rated Scooby. It'll happen. Someday Scooby will no longer be trademarked, copyrighted, whatever, and someone will take it and make one of those horror movies out of it. I just hope at that point that when they do it well.
Oh, I was sure you were going to say that you hope we were all dead by then. I was going to be like, I can echo that. Yeah. I don't think there is any doing it well, but do it after I'm gone.
How long does Scooby have to be around before it becomes public domain? 100 years?
I think it's 100 years.
I'll be dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just a word of caution to anyone who does actually try and do that. I will come back and haunt your ass and make bad things happen on your production. It's my promise right there. So just beware.
That's great. Do we have final thoughts on unpopular opinions, Wendy?
Yeah, I hope we get to do a second one of these because I think this is a good thing to talk about. It is interesting how unpopular opinion is subjective in the sense of like what is unpopular to this group is popular to that group and vice versa. So, I mean, everyone is always entitled to their own opinion. What is unpopular to us is maybe popular to you. But yeah, I wish that in discussing these kinds of things that everyone do it with an open mind, but an open mind for logic. Because sometimes your opinion is based only on your emotion. And that's what leads you into like, because like, I mean, a lot of this is just for fun. I get it. But some of this stuff gets a little bit serious and enters into territory that's like, this isn't good for anybody. You know, that opinion that it's okay to do this or that, it's not going to do anybody any favors. So I would encourage people talk about unpopular opinions about Scooby and everything else and like listen with a critical ear, because there might be something that you can take away from what other people consider unpopular compared to what you consider unpopular and vice versa. And there's always something to be learned in everything. And while a lot of people, I'm going to get in trouble. A lot of people will tell you no opinion is wrong. If your opinion goes against the facts, it's wrong. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Joel, your final thoughts?
I'm scrambling to come up with something, but I got nothing.
I think it's okay for you to have your own opinions. And I think that everyone should be talking about things like this. You know, you can have just a conversation about your liking Scrappy, your dislike of Scrappy, and still come out of it on good terms. Like, you don't have to be mean. The whole point of unpopular opinions is not that you have to bash someone because they don't agree with you. You know, you can disagree and still be friends, and it's fine. You can have a nice conversation about it, and it doesn't have to turn into a war, you know, this side of the Scooby fandom versus this side of the Scooby fandom. But I find it interesting, some of the unpopular opinions. And I did find others online, which I do think we will need to do a part 2 of this at some point, because I think it's interesting to hear the different sides that everybody has, and you know, to just talk about it. And yeah, so definitely we'll be doing a part 2 at some point. But for now, we're going to wrap things up. Before we do, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. Wendy, we'll start with you.
On Instagram, I'm at Wendy Bridge. On Twitter X, I'm Wendy Loves Jesus. And my blog is wendylovesjesus.wordpress.com.
Joel?
You can find me on YouTube. Just type in Planet Scooby.
And you can find all my links on ScoobyAddicts.com. Let us know what your thoughts are on the unpopular opinions that we discussed. Let us know if you have ones that you want us to discuss in part 2. And thank you for joining us for another Scooby panel. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Tagus, Garrett Spencer, Paul the Scooby Dude, and Jesse. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy Bridge, and Joel from Planet Scooby. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network, where you can find all things geek. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. ScoobyAddicts artwork by Will Davenport. Scooby Panel logo by Garrett Spencer. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby Panel.